You're listening to the County Pulse on KZCC, KZCW FM 106.1, 104.5, TV 12 on demand, and online at www.countypulse.org. Well, we are back here in the studio on, again, as always, with you guys live Thursday afternoons at 1 p.m. It's been a pretty hot week compared to these past few weeks that we've experienced, but thankfully fall is coming, so hopefully things are going to get a little bit cooler, which, speaking of fall, come November 3rd is Election Day. We are starting a Woodlands Township Board of Directors election series, which is basically where we're going to be interviewing each candidate for different township positions and even some county-level positions, which we are currently working on obtaining for you guys. But basically, we're just trying to make sure all candidates have an equal opportunity to voice their views, what they believe in, all on one single consistent platform. In this episode, actually, we're going to be interviewing Tom Chumbley. He is running for position 2 with Township Board. So we're going to have a pretty lengthy interview with him. And again, a few days after this is published, you'll be able to go on our YouTube channel and get clip highlights. Sanat is going to be very good about this. He's going to basically make a video that's going to have a bunch of the good highlights from our interviews so that you can go back and get the little important snippets that come from it. But anyways, we normally have good news, but unfortunately this time we don't, and I know we always like to focus on the good, but unfortunately the Conroe mayor, Toby Powell, died at age 79 over this past weekend. He has been a long time Conroe and Montgomery County resident. He was actually born in Montgomery County way back when in 1940 on First Street. This was back when the Montgomery County Hospital was a thing before it, I guess, expanded into the Conroe Regional and then Huntsville and then the Woodlands. So before the whole hospital system started to split up. He went to Sam Houston Elementary and Travis Junior High and graduated from Conroe High in 1959. So again, Conroe High, I haven't ever thought about that before, how old it is. Normally we think McCullough Junior High is pretty old from the 70s, but wow, that's pretty crazy to think about. Mm-hmm. In 1976, he ran for his first Conroe Council seat against Savoy owner Wallace Lambton. I'm not sure what Savoy is, but I think it's like an older gas station. He lost it, but he won the council seat the next year and served a 2-year term on the council. He was elected as Conroe's mayor in 2016, and his term was set to expire in November. We've had a few county, just people from the county leaders die in the past couple of years, and some of them have been in pretty, they've come a long way, and they've been long-time residents. So, this just shows you how time just goes on, because, obviously he had been a resident just of Conroe in general for years, and seeing that he graduated in 1959, it's just crazy to think about how some of these people are so dedicated to their community and such.
Right, yeah.
And also, the Woodlands Township was recently named a film-friendly community. It sounds pretty oddly specific, but Governor Greg Abbott has basically said that the Woodlands is a good place to make a film, like a movie, TV show. There haven't actually been any movies filmed in the Woodlands. There have been a few music videos and advertisements. I believe Gucci Mane.
Really?
They filmed one in Carlton Woods, a music video, and then, of course, there's a bunch of commercials. But other than that, we actually, as you would think, we haven't had a actual movie that is completely set in the Woodlands and filmed in the Woodlands, which, we're pretty big now, so...
So I'd watch out, Next thing you might know, Mission Impossible might be filming right down your block.
Yeah. That'd be pretty cool seeing us going to theater and seeing us on the big screen. That'd be really cool.
Even in TVs and movies, TV shows and movies, excuse me, filmed in Houston. It's cool to like go see it in the movie, but to have it in your hometown, that's gonna be pretty exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. North Carolina, where I used to live, there's this one movie I was watching that had my the little village, I guess you could say, where I lived in, and it's like really cool seeing where you used to live in a movie or where you currently live.
Right. Yeah.
But we actually have our own film festival. Woodlands does. It's called the Inspire Film Festival. It attracts people from all across the U.S. It's in it's in February of each year. That's a pretty cool event. I've been trying to go for the past few years. Haven't been able to quite make it there, but it's a really good event. If that type of thing interests you, then I suggest that you check it out. Also, real quick, out of Magnolia, Boots for Troops is set for a concert. Concert in the Country is what they call it. Set for October 17th. It's going to help provide active service members care packages and a plane ticket home for the holidays. This, again, is a lawn chair-friendly event. It will be held from noon to 11 p.m. at Show Sports Farm in Magnolia. This is located at 32931 Wright Road in Magnolia. Again, tickets start at $30. Kids 10 years old and under are free. And there's also, this is really cool, there's a raffle to win a brand new Ford F-150 truck from Planet Ford. Planet Ford is pretty good supporter of the community, so this is very good seeing them do this. You can buy raffle tickets right now to participate in the raffle, and they're going to draw the winner on stage around 9:30 p.m. until October 17th. So, of course, you don't have to go the whole time. There's also an $1,000 grand prize for the second annual cook-off that will run Friday night and Saturday. I'm not sure how they're going to do that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, this was very recent. I mean, I pulled this a few days ago, so it sounds like as of now it's going to happen. But
hopefully some social distancing, some sanitary cookout policies, maybe. I don't know what that would really look like. But
I mean, normally with these cookouts too, it's like businesses going. So I mean, at least people are trained,
right? Yeah,
and they know what to do. But yeah, kind of got me scared there for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Registration and payment is due by October 2nd, so you got just under 2 weeks to get that taken care of. If you want more information about this, contact Marissa Niles at 832-948-0412 or mniles718 If you want to be a vendor there, you can contact Boots for Troops at 346-703-0934 or info@boots4troops.com or visit countryintheconcert.org. So that's a lot of contact information.
Right, yeah.
So if you just Google Boots for Troops, you'll be able to find all that out. But it's good they included that. Also, the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office National Night Out kickoff encourages social distancing. This is a pretty big event. Our county emphasizes this event quite a bit, and this year they're encouraging people to basically not go out like you normally would each year and have like block parties and such. Mm-hmm. They really want people to stay inside, as tempting as it may be to find an excuse to go outside and have a party. They want people to stay inside. Again, they literally suggested having video conferences, and I believe there's going to be some type of live streams for some type of entertainment, to my knowledge right now. I'll get that for you guys over the coming weeks. And again, as this whole National Night Out tradition started, people would literally turn on their lights on their front porches. That's how it all started. So, I mean, just staying at home, you don't have to go out and do parties and everything, especially right now when we want to make sure that this downtrend of COVID-19 cases in our county keeps on going down and we don't let that spike up. But yeah, you guys have anything to add to that?
You know, speaking of the community, again, the County Pulse will be holding a interview series with the people running for their township, and it's going to be some awesome content. We're going to be interviewing some very, very intelligent people who going to be the future of our community. Mm-hmm. So please make sure you're tuning in on all our services and listening to the County Pulse, because we would love to spread the information with you.
Yeah, awesome. So later this episode, you'll be hearing from Tom Chumbley. in addition to Sanat and I ask him some questions about his vision for the community, what makes him different from the other candidates, and also how to vote. So make sure you stay tuned. Again, if you don't have time to watch the 45-minute long interview, Sanat is going to be uploading some highlights and clips of the most important content to our YouTube channel.
It'll be about a 5 to 10 minute video where you can watch that.
Right, very like bite-sized. So, definitely check those out if you don't have time to listen to the podcast. But,
Yeah.
Yep, make sure you're listening, sharing, and
All that.
yeah, following, subscribing, liking, everything that can really get the word out.
And that's your quick weekly bite from county news. More news on demand at countypulse.org. I'm Jack Pale. We'll see you after the break.
Another working week is over. No chance of staying sober. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, we're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. Yeah, I can feel a good one coming on. Three blondes in a ragtop Mustang followed us down to the lake and didn't have to think about that too long. Skinny dipping in the bright moonlight, situation couldn't be more right. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, we're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. Yeah, I can feel a good one. Feel like a good one. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, we're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. We're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. Yeah, I can feel a good one. Yeah, feel like a good one. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, oh, now. Now it's a good one, yeah.
welcome back to the County Pulse. I'm here with Rawson and Jack. And to start off our interview series, we have a very, very special guest. He's worked as a soldier in the U.S. Army, professionally with 3 different universities in the state of South Carolina, including the governor's office. He was a member of the International City County Management Association, has served for our community on the Grogan's Mill Village Association Board, as well as the Crockett's Crossing Village Board of Directors. Finally, he's a father of 4. Please welcome Mr. Tom Chumbley. How are you today, sir?
Thank you very well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah. So we just wanted to get you on because, as some people may know, you are running for seat number 2 of the board of directors for the Woodlands, correct?
That's correct, yes.
So yeah, I guess we could just start off by maybe expanding upon like Sanat's biography of you. I guess like tell us about yourself in general, like what you do for fun, maybe like about your family.
Wow. Well, my family, I've got 4 kids. One is a 22-year-old girl, 21-year-old boy who was profoundly autistic when he was born, And now it's like a miracle. You'd never know that he made so much progress. I have a son that's now 12. He is literally a math genius. He attends Lone Star College. He's taking calculus right now, and he's been attending Lone Star since he was 10 years old by legitimately passing the entrance exam to get in. He also was selected by the Woodlands High School. There was some sort of kind of mural for CISD. He was actually selected as a sixth grader. First time a sixth grader has ever been selected to represent the Woodlands High School in a math competition, and their team won. So he's done he's literally a genius. I also have another son who is 8 years old, and he is quite smart as well, and he's in GT as well, and prides himself on doing well. My wife is from Russia. I was married previously, and she decided she was going to leave, and I ended up obtaining custody of the children and being a single parent for 4 years. And about me, I was actually adopted at birth. So I feel just immensely grateful because statistically, I would have been, frankly, in prison. A lot of kids who go into the foster care system do really poorly. I was, my father, I call him my parents because I was with him my whole life. He's from England, born and raised. He when he was born, there were bombs dropping over Coventry, England, where he lived. I have also lived in England for 7 years. And my mother is from the country of Texas, if you understand that mentality. She was from Gonzales, and that's where she grew up in, the come and take it cannon thing, that whole deal. And her family literally came on a wagon trail from somewhere up north. I can't remember where it was, Oregon, somewhere up there, and was literally attacked by Indians, and they went in a circle and all that. And so that's a bit of background. But I want to tell you with regard to just recently I was being questioned about my motivations and things like that. And I reveal a lot of things as you saw on the website. But one thing that I've kind of had a self-awareness about a little more by being questioned, I try and stay very objective. I try and keep my emotions out of things. But I realized something about myself recently and the emotions that I actually had and felt. And that is that I wanted to have a way of giving back because I was adopted. And I always wanted to adopt my own child, but as my life worked out, I ended up having 4, and that's enough as it is. But I kind of see myself in the role of adopting the Woodlands, if you will, and I'm very protective of my kids, and that's kind of how I see my role as running. I mean, that's my concern. Is it's a way of giving back. And it's a way of protecting the people from, there's so much nonsense out there. It's just crazy. You would not believe the politics, even on a local level.
Exactly, Mr. Chumbley. Reading through your website, I could see you as a father figure, kind of like, as you mentioned before, the father of the Woodlands, so to speak, if we put it into context. And, you mentioned your brilliant kids. And in fact, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Am I right?
Right, I guess so.
Right. So, Mr. Chumbley, you call yourself an organizational scientist. What does that mean?
Yeah, so the National Science Foundation categorizes a variety of different science. And so basically, I'm working on a PhD in leadership studies. I'm very close to obtaining that. I just need to work on my dissertation, one more round of classes. And I like calling that organizational sciences, first of all, because that's what the National Science Foundation, that's the way it would categorize it. But it's really important when you use your words to kind of convey what you're trying to convey. And so I'll just put it simply like this, that you've probably heard that George Washington, I think it was pneumonia he died of, but the medical I guess treatment for him was bleeding him, if you're familiar with that.
Right,
that old thing. Yeah, so you just take blood out of the guy, and somehow that's supposed to be some sort of treatment. Of course, we know better. All of us know better. None of us, well, I don't know if any of you guys are medical professionals. I'm not, but we all know better than that. Well, in organizations, there's a huge gap between what we know and what we actually practice. And there are simple things in many regards that we can do that can improve organizations, but we just simply don't do it. And so that's why I like to convey it that way. My skill set allows me to read science from any field. That's one of the reasons why I chose this field, because it gives me a broad capability to go to the research in any field and read it and understand it. And so that's why I like to convey it that way, because I want people to understand that I have those tools, that I have the ability to look at any area from any speciality and be able to grasp that at a very deep level. And there's a great deal of complexity there, in terms of what you have to do in this office, in terms of reading reports and making good decisions. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I convey it like that.
Right, that's a very interesting characteristic. Not many people you can find with that, and that's just awesome.
Yeah, no, that's actually really cool. I think it's kind of underrated, the like scientific method of like public policy, like even at a local level, like a national level. So
Absolutely.
it's very interesting to hear you characterize your like public service in that way, right? It seems like it's very like rational and very like objective, like you characterized yourself earlier. So I do
Exactly.
appreciate that. But specifically on the topic of like public service, right? On your website, it talks about how you can't take a public position unless you really believe in it, right? I guess my question to you would be, what makes you believe in either the board of directors for the Woodlands or specifically like the role that you would play?
I think it's more along the lines of I'd have to see exactly where you're getting at, but of course the role itself, I believe in it, but I think it's more a matter to me of the issues that in terms of the positions that I take there. I can give you a for instance, that when I ran for the Woodlands Board last year, and the politics here are essentially on the question of incorporation. They say, well, are you for incorporation or are you against incorporation? Right. It's kind of like me asking you, have you stopped beating your wife? Right? If you say yes, I've stopped beating my wife, then that means you used to do it. And if you say no, then that means you're continuing to do it. The question itself is not a great question. And when you, in the final analysis, when you ask the question, are you for the Woodlands incorporating or are you not? And this might be getting into territory that you might not be very familiar with, but I can tell you in the Woodlands, that's what determined last year who was getting elected. And actually, to be honest with you, what happened last year is I had people approach me and they said, if you'll say what you need to say, if you say yes to incorporation, I will be backed by a state representative. I'll be backed by several people who are on the Woodlands board already. I'll have money and people behind me. I opted to take the path of what's actually factual, what's accurate, rather than just what's politically convenient.
Right. Yeah. No. I realized I originally misinterpreted the statement on your website. That definitely does make sense. So I guess what is your current philosophy about incorporation before we delve into the specifics? Are you like in between? Are you waiting until you take office to make that decision?
No, it's incorporation is really a value proposition about what you really want. So I have a daughter close to your age, and she wanted to get a car, and it was worth spending an extra $300 for a particular fender because of the look, right? So to her, it was worth paying $300 extra for this particular look. For you, it might not be, or you might want to pay $1,000 for another look. That is how you value it. And so with incorporation, it really comes down to how you value it. And that's the problem that I have in our community, because it's either you are for it or you're against it, and there's nothing in between, which the reality is everything is in between. And the arguments that are being made in our community, and I can tell you because I spoke with just about everybody who's anybody in our community with regard to it, and they're either trying to make arguments for or against, and there was nothing in between. And then when you look at what's actually happened, it's precisely what I said it was, and that's where it is. So as far as my position, I haven't really taken a hard position on either way, because it really doesn't even matter what I want, because the only thing that we can do on the board is I'm one of 6 other people. And the only thing we can do is say, hey, let's put this on the ballot to be voted on by the residents, by people who are eligible to vote. That's it. And what I think we need to do is educate people, because there's been so much misinformation about what it actually is, that I can tell you what the facts are. The facts are, we just found out. I was on with the executives of the Woodlands yesterday, and I found out that it will be I said this last year, there'll be a tax increase, and people who are for it, there's not going to be a tax increase. How can you say that? Well, it's just the facts. And now we have the incorporation study by Novak Consulting that says exactly how much that's going to be. And the executives at the Woodlands Township has calculated that out. So if you own a home at $500,000, it's going to be $311 tax increase. So factually, the question is, for those who are listening, who are in the Woodlands, who are going to be interested in this, because this is information they haven't heard before, is that worth it to you? And then there's just a matter of discussion of the pros and cons and whether that's worth it to you. So really what I think about it doesn't really matter. To be honest with you, I will give everybody who's out there who's a voter the opportunity to vote on it for November 2022, provided we've had a discussion in town halls and things like that. And this right here, where we have the opportunity to get information out to people so that they really understand what's going on.
Right. Yeah. As you mentioned, you're coming into this position to bring resolution to the incorporation issue, and also, Mr. Chumbley, you want to be the check on potential overextension of governmental power, right? So what does that kind of entail for you?
So a specific example was a lack of transparency. So the guy who's there now, who occupies that space, I was him. He was selected because I chose not to go for incorporation. So what happened was, this is just one example, but it's a real example that happened, was this guy was basically appointed onto the board. There was another guy, Brian Boniface, he left. So there was a seat open. And the board rightly had the ability to put someone on there. And I understand the politics here in the Woodlands. That guy would have gotten on regardless of the process they used. And legally, the board was entitled to put him in there in the manner in which they did. They didn't violate any law. But morally, usually, so I'd say morally, they were incorrect. Usually, you should, a person is put on there by being elected by the people. So instead of, and if you talk to a lot of people, they feel like that what happened was the board just went and did it behind closed doors and kind of in the dead of the night type of thing. And they shouldn't have done it that way. So just because you have the power to do something doesn't mean that you should do it. And because this is a moral issue, I consider that there's 3 major aspects to any moral consideration. One is the ends, what are the results of what you do, and what is the motivation for it, and what are the means. So whether the motives or the result would have changed, it would not have, because of the politics. The means was incorrect. And so I say, most of these people are good people, but I think when you're in a position of authority and power, and again, going back to incorporation, when you're telling people just your side of things, I mean, I can understand that. I mean, if you were selling soap, you don't advertise someone else's soap, right? You advertise yours. When you're a lawyer, you defend your client, right? But there's a point to where you can't be a moral public servant if you're selling only one side of the issue. It's not right. And so, that's the position that I take.
Yeah, I mean, that seems very transparent of you to even openly discuss that, right? But I mean, even calling for a direct election on the issue and being pretty indifferent and honest about incorporation in general, I feel like is pretty demonstrative of those transparent qualities, right? I guess my question would be, Aside from pushing things to the ballot, right? What would look different, like materially, in your position, with like a new, I guess, like methodology of transparency? Excuse me.
Yeah, so I want to correct one thing. It's true that I would absolutely put it on the ballot, but there's another thing. Legally, it has to be.
Right.
So no one is going to be able to tell you differently. So I just want to clear that point up. But how would it be different? That's a really good question. You know, a lot of people when they're running, they want to tell you, and this is what I dislike about what we see in politics a lot is people are going to tell you, well, I'm for this issue and I'm for that issue, and if I were on there, I would do this. Well, how can you say that? There's 6 other people on that board. Or in Congress, there's 424 other people. You know, how can you say you're going to do anything? If someone tells you they're going to do something, I'm going to look at them kind of funny and say, how in the world are you going to do that? How can you promise that when there's other people involved? You can't just do things. You know, unless you're the president, you have certain executive authority. There's certain things, a lot of things you can't do on your own, and you shouldn't do. So how would it be different? And well, it's hard to predict that because, first of all, a lot of the candidates are going to come out and they're going to talk about issues that are hot button issues for particular people in order to emotionally get them charged up to go vote for them. But the reality is that things in the Woodlands are so good in many respects that it's hard to come out and be honest and say, oh, I'm going to come do this and everything's going to be wonderful and rosy and better because I was there. The reason why I say that is because I know that in terms of the issues, in terms of getting to the depth of things, that I can do circles around anyone else who's running right now. I can tell you that. There are people that don't live in the Woodlands that I know, who I respect highly. And if they ran, I would just say, please go ahead. I would love for you to be elected on the Woodlands. But those people aren't running. Those people aren't there, and the people that I'm running against are the very people who are selected precisely because they'll do whatever the political action committees are asking. Maybe that's not right. Maybe I shouldn't say whatever. But the reason why they have been selected and chosen by the political action committees is precisely because they took the position that those people want to see them take. And none of those positions are correct. I'm not saying they don't believe necessarily in those positions, but I can tell you that when it comes down to the issues and the depth and the complexity of those, that I am more objective. I am more correct. I hate to say that, and it makes it sound like I'm so arrogant, but I have spent my entire life since 7 years old trying to be the best type of elected official that I could possibly be. It goes back to Plato a long time ago. He was talking about a philosopher king. Of course, we're not interested in kings, but he basically said that there are certain skills that a person needs to have if they're going to have authority and be in power. And so I started saying, well, what are those things? And I started preparing myself for that many, many years ago. I don't think any of these people can say the same thing. And I don't think any of the people have the same skill set that I have.
You know, Mr. Chumbley, as you kind of mentioned, great authority would require great leadership. And you propose that, for your leadership, you believe in the unity of vision, positive direction, forward looking. What kind of goes behind that type of leadership, and how does that help you with you resolving issues?
Well, I mean, I'm very close to getting a PhD in leadership precisely because that's my goal. I'm not sure I understand your question fully.
Just basically, what does vision, positive, direction, forward looking bring to the table? What is that type of leadership? How effective would that be?
Well, yeah. So there's so many ways to lead, right? Without getting overly technical, but there's something called the full range model of leadership. One of the other candidates talks about transformational leadership, like he knows what he's talking about, and he's correct that the research shows that if you're a transformational leader, that there are increases in performance, efficiency, so many positive aspects of that. So he knows something about that. And so he goes around calling himself a transformational leader. Well, I know exactly what it takes to be a transformational leader, and individualized consideration, idealized influence, attributed behavioral. I mean, I can go down the line and list what are the elements. Like if you're doing a survey, what those things are that you're actually looking for. I don't think he understands it. In fact, my dissertation includes transformational leadership in the full range. There's another part that's called contingent reward, which is really an exchange where it's fair. It's a fair exchange. There's a lot of exchanges where I benefit and you lose out. Well, that's not very good for leadership. So when it comes to leading, it's a matter of, people work hard, people work together better when the leadership is better. And so this type of positive vision, this unifying, positive, common vision is ultimately what you really need in order for people to come together. And that's why, this whole, I keep going back to corporation, because that's the issue with most people who are, people saying one thing and completely something else. I mean, that's ultimately, that's not going to bring us together. When it comes down to it, it's just going to divide people quite strongly.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think you put it very well. And honestly, I was not I personally was not expecting there to be so much material and actual I guess philosophical thinking behind it, very rational. I guess that's what I should have expected from someone completing their dissertation on the topic. But yeah, I do appreciate that. Yeah.
Exactly. And, in addition, to the uniqueness that you bring, Mr. Chumbley, one of the unique issues that you are gearing towards is talking about the aging of the woodlands. What kind of brought you to kind of bring to the resolution of this issue? What brought you to it?
Well, I mean, so this is where it kind of comes from, and this is something that a lot of other people aren't talking about. Apart from now, I can see that there are people who are involved at a very high level of trying to increase sales and use tax because the Woodlands is 99% built out. And so if I can kind of show you, on a graph, our sales and use tax, it's a $55 million revenue stream, and it's going like this on a chart. And the reason for that is because we're about 99% built out. Our funding for a lot of that is coming from the development that occurs in the Woodlands, and as that decreases by 2023, we're going to have about this much from that particular source. So we're losing income because the Woodlands is filling up essentially, and so we need to find ways to get more money. And so, and it's not even just because of that. It's because I mean, I speak to that because that's important to other people, and it is important to me. We need to find those revenue sources, but we need to understand what's happening. And I did an internship in economic community development many years ago, and you can see where aging is an issue in the Woodlands. People like to think of the Woodlands as this new place, this wonderful place, and in many ways it is. But what happens here in the Woodlands, and I've started talking about it, and let me back up before I get into that, is this is an issue that very few people talk about because they're talking about issues that people are already concerned about because they're trying to get elected. I'm talking about what's important for the Woodlands, period. Mm-hmm. So I just want to frame the context in which that's coming from. So no one else has been really talking about that. The reason why that's an issue is simply because of this. There's part of the Woodlands that goes back to 1970s. Okay, you've got old homes, and those old homes are basically becoming, some of them, dilapidated. And what they're doing is some people are tearing down those homes, and what happens when they tear down those homes? They want something that's modern. So they put something new in there, which is completely different from the rest of the housing there, which basically ticks off about 75% of the local residents who are right there. Some people appreciate, okay, you're getting a new home and you want something more updated, but it doesn't look anything like that, but that's your thing. But a lot of those people who are in there who've purchased those homes don't like it. But that's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue to me is let me give you an example. I was walking through there last year, knocking on doors, talking to people, and some people had left food outside that had flies coming in and out, and it was so stinky and nasty and disgusting. I had to hold my mouth and nose in order to give literature to put it on the door to leave it for whoever lived there. And as it ages and gets bad on the periphery of the Woodlands, I could see people coming in and out because that's where it was, is in the older parts of the Woodlands. And basically, the long story short is, as standards become low, I'm not saying that just because you have people who have low standards that necessarily they're going to have low standards in other areas, but ultimately that's what happens, is that people who have low standards, they're going to have low standards in other areas, a small percentage, let's say, of them. And then what's going to happen is we're going to have crime come in, and it's going to be not just outside the Woodlands and trying to deal with that, it's going to be inside the Woodlands. And then we're going to have dilapidated housing. And basically what I'm saying is, okay, it's not that bad right now, but if we don't plan for it, if we don't start making that part of the issue, after it happens, it's too late to deal with the issue. You have to start planning for it now. So that's basically where that comes from.
You know, a big part of that, Mr. Chumbley, is, development. And, there's a concept of urban development called smart growth. However, you advocate for wise growth. So what does wise growth entail? And, how would that processes be, different of what we have right now or other?
Wow. See, I'm so glad I put that on my website. I'm so glad that you looked at that, because I don't think anybody's paying attention to that stuff. So so many years ago when I was an intern, and they wanted me to do a paper on smart growth, and it's something is a big deal. And actually, the Woodlands was a model for that. They actually sent people here to learn about how to do that better. But this is the thing with smart growth: is smart growth is really for the benefit of the administrators and the administration of the city more than anything else. Because basically what you have is you have them building density in ways to make lines shorter. In some ways, it's more efficient in terms of delivery of services. But what happens when you have plots of property that are so small and people stuck together? Well, when you have a time of COVID, that's not necessarily the best thing. Or should we just be considering efficient delivery of the services? What about you as an individual? What if you want to have a slightly bigger plot of property? What if you want to keep a little more separation? When I purchased a home many years ago in South Carolina, I purchased a home that was really close to the house next door. And the way that particular community was, it worked. But a lot of people don't want to do that, and I don't think I want to do that again. When I purchase again, I don't want to do that. So it was considering smart growth is good for many respects, but it considers not necessarily what the residents and what everyone wants. Right. So there's certain values that are put above others. And so wise growth is keeping smart growth in mind, but also considering the values of the people who want to live there, not forcing them into some kind of housing that they don't want to have because that's the only thing available, basically.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I just want to note that I'm very glad this was brought up, because the first thing that I think of when it comes to Woodlands development in the future is the aging, right? I got my driver's license about a year and a half ago, and I have a hobby of driving through neighborhoods and checking them out, right? Mm-hmm. Looking at the nice houses and the not so nice houses, right? And I think you're absolutely right that there are areas that are older and they are dilapidated, but you also have newer areas like Sterling Ridge and Creekside, Jacobs Reserve, yeah. Although technically not part of the Woodlands, represents that Woodlands expansion and then kind of accounting for that, right? So my question would be, is there any specific ideas that you would have as to how to accommodate for that growth, i.e. through land purchasing, expansion physically, or within the Woodlands borders, what we have currently, redeveloping? How would that look, I guess, is my question.
Okay, my response right now would be, I'm not that smart. I can look up ICMA and their best practices and give you things, but this is something I should not have to do alone, and no one should do this alone. And any ideas I come up with, should probably not pass the first drawing board. What I want to do is I want to have the discussion, and what I found, and it's true, and you can find it in research, that basically my IQ instantly increases the moment there's more people involved. In fact, what research shows is you could have these fairly high QI people, and if they're not working together very well, that a group of people whose IQ is just slightly above average and they're working together really well, the group IQ is actually higher. Anytime I come in the room with someone who's willing to work with me, my IQ instantly goes up. And there's no way that you can solve an issue like this without working with people and getting their input, their buy-in, their feedback. So for me to sit here and pontificate, if you will, on what we should do is ultimately not going to be useful, because there would be so many ideas, and I could throw an idea out there and it could be rejected the minute I throw it out there. So I think it's something where we just need to find people who are willing to go, oh, okay, yeah, we should probably deal with this. And there are people, just because I've started talking about it, there are people who are high up who recognize that it is integral to how things are going to work, and money that can come back in terms of value of properties and things like that. So they're starting to go, oh, okay. So this isn't something I can't answer. I don't think it's anything I really should answer. I mean, I can start throwing out ideas, but it's not really going to be useful, because anything I say, I'm afraid that it'll just be rejected, and people will say, well, that's a dumb idea. How did you ever come up with that? Even though it might be best practices that ICMA, says is what you should do.
Yeah, the question was a little bit more out of curiosity, because I mean, I've thought about it too, and it's definitely like a complex issue. So I understand where you're coming from, but I guess like
I think, if I can, there has to be. This is very complex because it's not just a single issue. It's a complete issue, and it has to do with what are we going to do as a whole going forward for the future, because it has to be a comprehensive plan that deals with not just wise growth and sales and tax revenue, but everything else that's going on. You've got to incorporate that in there. So you have to have a single plan. So any single idea has to somehow mesh with everything else that we're doing as well. So, I mean, that's, why I answer the way I answer.
Oh yeah, no, I do appreciate that, I guess.
Going back to development and, the pace that we're going at right now, what I see is, increased traffic flow, congestion, and, decreased mobility. However, you offer this system called real-time ATCS, real-time advanced traffic control system. How would that help our community, Mr. Chumbley?
Well, so I, like I said, I was on with executives of the Woodlands Township the other day, and among them was the fire chief. And they're getting a system, I believe it's called Optiplex or something like that.
Optiplex.
And essentially, it's a system where the traffic system can notice their vehicles. It's GPS. It operates via GPS. So the lights can basically change to allow for traffic flows, because sometimes you get a bunch of traffic backed up, and then even if a fire or ambulance are trying to get through, they can't. So this will help the traffic flow so that they can get through. Well, basically, it does the same thing, but for everyone. It doesn't give preference to anybody necessarily, but it is a computerized system that, better than any human being right now, the way the system works is there's a guy, you'll hardly believe this, but it's absolutely true. There's a guy sitting in Conroe that flips switches for every traffic light to time each one. And it's just crazy. So there's this guy playing God with the traffic. And he thinks he knows better than a computerized system that can work in real time. I don't think he really thinks that, but that's the way the system is. And it can be measurably better, significantly better. In fact, this system, I don't know if I say on my website there or not, I can't recall, but this system works so well that the people who install it say they'll install it, and if you don't like it, because they've never had a situation that they don't like it, that they'll come back and they'll reinstall your old system for free.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
It's a no-brainer.
that definitely does say something about it. But to close this off, I guess, and this kind of also does kind of follow this question. For your plans for the future, or at least your personal vision for what the board should do in regards to the development of the woodlands, whether that be traffic or wise growth, what kind of methodology are you going to be using to achieve those goals, right? Or what criteria are you going to be using to evaluate that? That may be a little bit nuanced. Let me to rephrase it, I guess.
No. I understand the question.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead and rephrase a little bit there.
Yeah.
That's really complex what you're asking. I mean, I've taken several public policy courses, so what you're asking is it seems like super important. But
yeah, I guess
if you can rephrase that, that'll help me to address it.
I apologize. To rephrase that, I guess and this may be a little bit open-ended as well, but what vision do you see for the woodlands in the next 5 to 10 years, and what role do you think you play in making that happen? And this can be very broad and very open-ended, but I'm just kind of curious what you prioritize in your explanation.
Well, I mean, the thing that we really need to do is related to the funds that we get in. I mean, it's hard to make predictions, but we need this group that John Brown is working on. It's called the Big Idea Group. He's one of the directors right now. That is super important. We need to have a way of bringing funds in. There's been a community, I understand, I think it was maybe McKinney, Texas, and they invested in, I think it was high school football or some sort of football. And through that, they were bringing in a lot of revenue. And the reason why this is important is, let me give a quick example here, is a lot of people who are residents of the woodlands complain about, we have a triathlon. We have different things events like this that are put on. And I understand that. I was on the Grogansville board. I was on the Cochrane Crossing board. And I understand that perspective from the residents. But what the residents perhaps don't understand quite so succinctly is that it's the funds that come from that keep their taxes low. No one wants high taxes. People want their taxes to be kept low. So there's a balance to be achieved there, right? So maybe time in between when we have these triathlons and different events that help keep their taxes low. Well, like I said, with the development money starting to go away and with increased responsibilities in the woodlands, first of all, we need to be a little more choosy about the projects we want to take on. Right now, they're wanting to have a cultural arts center, which is going to be very expensive. I take the position, unless it's going to have a return on investment, we don't need one. I think it's wonderful to have one, but Montgomery County is putting one in. Do we need another one here or there? It's fine as long as it's going to bring money in, because right now we're in a position where we don't need to be going into debt unless it's going to be helping the people. That's the position I take. And so we need to be looking for revenue sources. We need to be looking for the opportunity. We have plenty of money, but it's not always going to be that way. And it's not always going to be the perfect woodlands. And we need to start preparing for what an aging woodlands is going to be, how we're going to recover funds that we're losing, what we're going to do that. I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of brilliant people. I can tell you, there's top executives of corporations here within the woodlands who are part of that Big Idea Group. And they haven't come up with something yet that they've agreed on that there's a plan for. So I'm not going to sit here and by myself try and pretend that I have all the answers or what that vision is, but it has to involve a way of getting more funds in so that we can keep taxes low for the residents who are, to some extent, spoiled with the way things are right now. Everything that's on my website there are ways that it can improve. Everything from feral hogs, mosquitoes. That's something that it seems like ridiculous, but we have a solution to that. I mean, what we can do, I mean, I don't want to sit here and say if I'm elected, it will be measurably better. I believe that simply because I know that I'll do the legwork, and on every single issue, I'll make sure I go in depth and I'll be objective and I'll come up with the best possible answer. Whereas right now, what we'll get if anyone else is elected in position 2 is we're going to get someone who's not going to do that to the extent that I will. And so I just have the belief that ultimately that's going to make it better, and that ultimately there will be people who will be listening to these issues. If I get elected, if I'm just sitting back here trying to get elected, people are listening to the issues, so that's good, because these are issues that wouldn't even be talked about if I wasn't running. So to answer that precisely, I can't say exactly what it would be like. I can't predict that, but I believe that I know me and my disposition, that I believe it would be measurably better.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess to close it out, we do appreciate you coming on and taking your time. I guess our final question would be, how can listeners go out and vote for you? When is the date? What are the issues? Or how do we register? How does that work?
Well, it's just, you register. If you're voting for president, then if you're in the Woodlands, you have the opportunity to vote for me. I'm going to have to pull up my website right here. So some of that.
And then the early vote is October 13th to the 30th.
That's it. That's what I was looking at because I didn't want to get it wrong.
And then the election
So November 3rd.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, November 3rd is the big day, but you do not want to go vote on November 3rd because the line is going to be huge, particularly this election. I mean, it's going to be crazy. So early voting is from October 13th through 30th. You should just be able to find out. You can go to my website and certainly on there you can find that out, or you can on Get Involved tab, and it will direct you to the county website. But you can go directly to the county website and you can find out where it is you need to go to vote. And if you're interested in voting for president or for whatever, you need to do that like ASAP, because there's a limit as to how long before you can be on that list of names. So I would just encourage you to be informed and just know where your place is to go vote, and to do it as your earliest opportunity, which is October 13th through 30th.
Right. Emphasis on the early voting part.
Absolutely. You don't want to wait in line for hours.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Chumbley, for sitting down and talking to us. We really, really appreciated you coming on today, and we hope for the best.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Again, you're listening to the County Pulse on 104.5, 106.1, TV 12, and online at irlonestar.com. We'll see you guys next week.
Ice down that igloo cooler, tank of gas that ought to do her. I can feel a good one coming on. Throw in Ray Wiley Hubbard, sing along to Redneck Mother. Any blues I had before are gone. Another working week is over, no chance of staying sober. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, we're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. Yeah, I can feel a good one coming on. Three blondes in a ragtop Mustang followed us down to the lake and didn't have to think about that too long. Skinny dipping in the bright moonlight, situation couldn't be more right. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, we're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. Yeah, I can feel a good one. Feel like a good one. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, we gonna roll all night. We gonna get the feeling right. We gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn.